in self-government the world has ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, it was also a sad day because it was the first attempt by a central government on American soil to confiscate our guns. Luckily, it failed. It was stopped by the Minutemen of Lexington and Concord. And I'm here today to speak to you about what's next. I think regardless of any differences we might have, we all believe we need another revolution. We need a political revolution, not a violent revolution, not an armed revolution. But if we don't take back this country in the next 2 years, you won't be leaving the country to your children and grandchildren. My name is Tim Donnelly. I am a pro-life, pro-marriage, pro-Second Amendment, give me liberty or give me death conservative. You've heard a lot about taxes, regulation, government intrusion into our lives, government trying to solve problems it has no business in, like global warming. This election isn't about any of those things. This election and every election in this state, every election in this country in 2010 is about whether or not we will live as free men and free women in the United States of America. The Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, those documents are inspired by God. They are not written by a bunch of clever men. And that is why they are so powerful. And that is why to this day, they are the solution to our problem. We need to return to our founding principles. Consent of the governed. 80% of the people are saying that they don't feel the government is ruling at the consent of the governed. 2/3 of them think they're doing just fine. They've got your consent to cram health care down your throat, to tell you what you need to buy, to tax you into oblivion. It's fuzzy math in my book. What it adds up to is a failure of communication, and it is an absolute... It just violates everything that our founders had originally intended. They intended this to be an experiment in self-government. We are a do-it-yourself people. We don't need the government to do for us, and yet they're doing everything. But they're not doing the things they're enumerated to do in the Constitution. They've added 50 extra items, but they're not doing any of the things they were originally intended to do. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution says that they shall protect each state from invasion. Oops. Big failure there. 10, 12 million illegal aliens in California alone. They say 12 million in the nation, multiply it by 3. That's the math that worked under the Reagan amnesty. The second part of that, the conjunctive phrase, is that the government shall guarantee each state a Republican form of government. What does that mean? That means that we shall all have our voice heard. And what do we have? We have a government that is pandering to people that don't even have the right to vote. You guys might wonder why I became a Minuteman. That is a central issue. It is the most critical issue because it touches every single other issue. Illegal immigration is not about immigration. Immigration is a process whereby people come from other countries, they're invited here, they're accepted here, they're inspected, and they sacrifice for a long period of time to become Americans. We heard a story about a gentleman here. My wife's grandfather has a similar story. 12 years, 20 years to reunite their families. This is a federal problem for 5 seconds that it takes to cross the border. Then it becomes a state and local problem. And the bill comes to your house. The bill comes to you disguised as a doubling of your car tax or a huge increase in your sales tax. It comes to you as a 40% increase in your health insurance. And is it the fault of the illegal alien for wanting a better life? I don't blame them. Not at all. The fault is in the people that we have sent there who refuse to solve a problem that 80 to 90% of the people want solved. And I'll tell you something, if you send me as your assemblyman, I will build a coalition on that issue with the Democrats, and we will have a much broader coalition like we did under Ronald Reagan. I'm no Ronald Reagan, but I'll tell you this. I talk to Democrats all the time, and this issue pisses them off more than most of us. It is shocking. I hear candidates all the time talk about reforming education. Bull crap. You can't reform education until you deal with this. 1/3 of our students in our schools are illegally here, and most of them don't speak the language. So you sacrifice the education of everyone else, and then we can't compete with China in the global economy. The communists have turned capitalist, and we're turning communist. Am I done? Let's get going. That's not the only problem facing us, and it isn't every problem. It affects every problem. We know that. I'm preaching to the choir now. 5 years ago, nobody could talk about this subject. 5 years ago, they called us racist, just like they're doing to the Tea Party. How many people here have been to a Tea Party? Yeah. All right. Sarah. Jobs. Jobs is job number one. There's a guy named Sinclair in the 18th century, I can never remember his first name, but he said, if you seek a glimpse of the American soul, look into their work. We are what we do. Every single one of us knows someone who has lost a home, a job, hope. It's our moral obligation to restore their faith in God, in each other, and in our form of self-government. And the only way we can do that is we have to make a choice. It's a time of choosing. Are we going to send a politician who will pander to everyone? Or are we going to send a patriot who will sacrifice for the greater good? Thank you.